Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pedagogy class. My name is Mr. Jacob Espinal, and I will give you a tour around learning centers. What are learning centers? How do they work? How can I make one in my class? That and much more we are going to learn today. Before we start, I want to do one activity with you, okay? Now, pay close attention to the following pictures. What comes to mind when you see this picture? Or this one? I'll give you a minute to think. Observe all the details and especially how the classroom is organized. You might think, well, it's a traditional classroom. It is organized in lines and students are working. They're doing the same thing. And in the other one, they're paying attention to a single teacher. If you're very observant too, you might say, well, that's a very old classroom because that TV is very old. And I will say you're very right. Okay, but let's switch up the scenarios. And what comes to your mind when you see these pictures? That changed, right? The organization is completely different. They're working in teams. Do you see how they are organized into different topics as well? I mean, they are working on different things. Now, let's put them side by side. Which one do you prefer? In which classroom would you like to be a student? Would you like to be a student here with the traditional classroom setting, the one that we actually grew up in? Or this one right here that is in separated groups, talking and working on different things? I say we need to think a little bit about this, okay? All right, so what are learning centers? That's what we are going to learn today. And we are going to identify ways to implement them in the classroom. Before we start, we need to review the concepts of teaching. And according to B.O. Smith, teaching is a system of actions intended to produce learning. Teaching cannot be separate from learning. That's why it's called the teaching learning system. Now, learning is a process that leads to change. This one occurs as a result of experiences or classes and also increases the potential for improved performance and also future learning. To help us in this process of teaching learning, we use teaching strategies. Educators use different methods that will help us improve the success in learning. And these include a wide variety of techniques. Now, one more thing that I want to focus on for learning centers is multiple intelligence. Multiple intelligence is a theory that from Howard Gardner that says that people learn in different ways and people have a different intelligence, that basically everyone is a genius of some sort. So how do we discover that and how do we approach that in the classroom is something worth diving into. Okay, so right into learning centers. Learning center is a teaching strategy. Oh, that's why it was important to learn what was a teaching strategy. And it consists of self-contained sections in the classroom in which the students engage in independent and self-directed learning activities. How is that so? Well, they are separated into different sections and they don't need a teacher. They are self-directed. Oh, okay. So basically, we are using something called collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is when students help each other to learn. Okay, now here are some options. Imagine that you organize your classroom into these 5 centers. You have 5 different circles. One, you set up a writing center, in the other one, a math center, in the other one, a science center, a reading center, and a computer center. These are actually the most common centers in a classroom because you can do so many things with them. Now, you can focus, for example, on feedback activities. At the end of the school day, you may have different activities for students to go in an organized manner into each one of these learning centers to prove how much they learn that day. For example, in the writing center, you can play some activities that will help students express the things that they learn during that day, or in the science center, they can put into practice what they learned during the class. In math, they can this could be an opportunity for them to help each other solve some exercises. Now, the other one would be the reading center. In the reading center, you can use it as a reading corner, they also say it, or a reading station in which you can have different books for students to read, but they need to have some sort of assessment at the end, okay? Now, you can also have a computer center, and I know that this is not something that is plausible for in many areas or in different schools because of the economic situation, but this would be a good incentive to organize something like that. You can change that up and you can do an art center or you can do a game center. I mean, the title that you give to the center, it's up to you. What do you want students to focus on? Now, what are the benefits for learning centers? Learning centers can help you differentiate the work and the learning process. For example, there are students that learn really fast and students that learn a little bit slower. Some students learn more by listening. Some students learn more by doing. Some students learn more by teaching. And so you can use these resources in these centers to help them actually acquire the knowledge and to meet the standards that you set for the class. Now, let's listen to this teacher. I want you guys to pay attention to her experience and some of her tips for setting centers in a classroom. Okay.
When I first started teaching, the idea of running centers in my self-contained office classroom seemed impossible. But I'm here to tell you it's not. I want to show you my tips and tricks for setting up centers in your classroom. Every day we run 3 different centers: an ELA center, a math center, and a fine motor center. My first tip is don't overcomplicate centers. They don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be amazing or special. Just start with familiar, fun things. My second tip has to do with space. Make sure that your centers are done in the same space every day if possible. That sets the expectation for your students in time and an environment. They know that when they come to that table, what the expectations are because you've taught them. My third tip, have a plan for transition. Make sure you have a timer going so everyone in the room knows when you are switching centers. My centers are also super short. My K2 students don't have a long attention span. I start centers at 4 minutes and I extend them to between 7 and 10 minutes at the end of the year. Slowly add time and have a plan for how students are going to rotate. Most of the learners in my classroom are emerging learners. They're learning basic number skills, basic matching, color identification, letter identification. A lot of it's receptive language. We support core language boards and AACs. And I want to show you some of the tasks that we're doing in centers, so maybe you'll be inspired to try. At this center today, we're doing building imitation. I build an object and then students imitate that with their blocks. I'm using Magnetiles here and supporting with our classroom AAC. So here I have some sorting trays. These are from Dollar Tree. I use a dry erase marker and I write on them. And if I want to pick them off, I just wipe them. They're so easy to use again and again. And then I have all of these letter erasers. I think I got these from Target. So easy to use, but I'm going to have students sort their letters. I love these alphabet number and tracing books too. We take turns between this and our matching book. The students just pull this off and then match. Next, we're going to do some adaptive books. I love these because they're interactive and the kids have so much fun with them. Here we're looking for circles. I've got all of my fields over here so students can just pull it over and Velcro them on as they find them. See, not fancy, not amazing, not super cute, functional. Yes. Easy to set up. Also, yes.
Okay, so we saw how she implemented learning centers in her classroom. Again, every teacher can set them in according to the student's necessities. So please be careful on some of the things that she mentioned because they may apply only for preschool, but learning centers may apply for elementary level or for high school level. You obviously need to change the way that you present that and how you organize them, the activities, and how you coordinate them. All right. Now, we are going to talk about some tips. The previous video talked about some of them, but let's review. Okay, number one, we need to keep the same learning centers for at least a quarter. These will help students, what? Basically, to get used to them, to know what they are going to do, to know what it is expected of them as a result in that specific center. Always use the same space as well. So students know, for example, if they're going to the math centers, they know where to go and they are not going to ask too many questions that are unnecessary, that will give them anxiety or distress. So they know where to go, and so they just go, and everything has to be there. Well, the materials, or and the second thing, the second tip is to differentiate. Learning centers are also differentiation, but in a way that you go and set up activities at the level of each of the students with the goal for all of them to reach the standard that you are looking for. So for this, it is better to use built-in differentiation activities. What is that? Let's say, for example, that you have different options for a story, that you have a reading center. And then you have them read a story. And they have three options. they can either draw a picture of the story. They can write a summary or write the parts of the story, the structure of the story, or they can write a response to that story, or they can write a different ending to the story. That has different options for the same story. And some students might say like, no, I like drawing. I want to show that I understood the reading by drawing a picture of it. And other students might say, well, I want to show that I understood the story by identifying the story structure, or I want to show that I learned and understood the story by writing a different ending to the story. So this is one example of these built-in differentiation activities. Now, as a third tip, it is that we need to include an instruction sheet and an example of the finished work. The instruction sheet works for students that know how to read already and students that are in higher grades. These will avoid them getting anxious or the stress that comes of not knowing what to do. And you can also use a sample of the finished work for them to know what their goal is. Now, one of the tips that I want to give you all of you is that you need to take it easy in centers, okay? Don't overcomplicate them. You need to start with familiar, fun things in the same spaces. So, for example, don't worry if children are very small and they are doing activities that are very simple, like counting or painting or coloring. It doesn't have to be a big activity. So don't you worry about that. The students just need to have fun while making sure that they meet the standards that you're setting. Now, I'll give you a tip of something that might happen when you have these learning centers. We all have students that finish early, and we all have students that don't finish, that have a hard time finishing the work. I always recommend teachers to have extra work at hand. It doesn't matter, or even better, you can even set up a learning center for these guys that finish fast. Okay, so they just like, if you finish fast enough and if you do a good job, then you can go to that learning center or that corner. That is also a very good option. Now, let's summarize what we learned today. Remember that learning centers are a teaching strategy in which students explore while working self-directed activities. Why do we need to use learning centers? Well, we use them to improve learning by collaboration, and it is focused on skills and kids have fun with it. Plus, it helps us get those students to meet the standard at their individual pace. How can we set up these learning centers? Well, just put a title, set up a space, set up a time, set up rules, put the materials, and just have them excited for going there. Now, some of the main learning centers you may use: writing center, math center, computer or interest center, a science center, or a reading center. How about we do something? I want to do a quick activity with you. So pay attention to this. Okay, let's do a review. What is a process that leads to change which occurs as a result of experience and increases the potential for improved performance. Is it learning, learning center, teaching strategy, or multiple intelligence? You're right, it's learning. Now, second question. What is this? Is the various methods educators use in their teaching and cover a wide range of techniques. That is yes, you're right. Teaching strategies. Good job. Now, third question. What is the theory that states that each person has different ways of learning and different intelligence they use in their daily lives? That's not hard. Yes, it is multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner. Now, next question. It's a teaching strategy consisting of self-contained section of the classroom in which students engage in independent and self-directed learning activities. What is it? You're right. It's learning centers. For our last question, let's see. Is a system of actions intended to produce learning? You're right. It is teaching. Good job. Now let's go back to the class. Well, I hope that today you learned what learning centers are and how to implement them in your classroom. Of course, in teaching, there are situations in which things don't go as planned. And that's when you need to be ready. Okay, you need to be ready what to do. And so that's what we can cover next class. Different scenarios and what to do to make sure that learning centers are successful. All right, you guys, so that'll be it for today. My name is Jacob Espinal, and this was your pedagogy class. Have a good day. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.